Hello students. In this video we'll talk about the process of transportation in animals, and to be specific we'll be talking about the blood circulation in human beings. Now in this we will talk about both the blood circulatory system and also the lymphatic system present in human body. We'll see what are its components, how are they organized, and what role or what function do they perform in the human body. So when we talk about transportation system, first let's understand why it is important, what are its role, and why does human beings require a transportation system. So the first and foremost is going to be the supply of oxygen to all the cells in the body. Right now you might think, why does the body or every cell in the body require oxygen? And to answer that, you already might know about that, and that's because this oxygen is going to be required for the ATP production. So you all know that the oxygen is essential in the aerobic respiration. Now we have learned about cellular respiration, and in the process you have learned that during the cellular respiration the oxygen is key for the production of ATP. So every cell, you know that they produce ATP or adenosine triphosphate, and for that now they require oxygen, and this process of transportation system actually is going to provide that oxygen to each and every cell in the body, so that every cell can produce its own ATP or energy. Now another second role why we need to have a transportation system in the body is to remove the byproduct, that is going to be the carbon dioxide from the body, and this is going to be a byproduct or the waste material that needs to be removed from the body. I think you all know how it is produced. Now another role why transport system is essential is going to be the supply of glucose to every cell. Now again we have to understand about the same process of cellular respiration, because for the cellular respiration to begin it needs a substrate, and the glucose here acts as a substrate, right? Which is getting oxidized basically in the cellular respiration process, so that the energy is produced. So again, for the process to go on, we need glucose in every single cell, and now this glucose is going to be absorbed or basically taken up from the small intestine after digestion, complete digestion, and it is going to be provided to each and every cell, and that is when again we need the transportation system, right? So as you can see here, when we talk about transportation system or cellular respiration or digestion, these are not completely separate processes. Instead, these all are related, and all of these processes need to work in coordination one after the other, so that we have the organism or the cell functioning, living. Anyway, coming back to why we need transportation system, we have another reasons, that is going to be the removal of nitrogenous waste, right? So when we talk about the cellular waste, or these are basically, we can say these are all metabolic waste, right? So all the metabolic waste needs to be removed, and that can be done with the help of a transportation system. Again, we need transportation system to carry all the nitrogenous waste to the site of filtration, that is the kidneys. Now many other components like the hormones, then you have salts, various salts, then immunoglobulins, which is also known as, this is also known as the antibody, right? We have different type of antibody which is essential for the immunity in the body, or to protect us against various foreign invaders, microbes, toxins, right? So they require antibody or immunoglobulins. Now they are also being carried from one part to the other parts with the help of transportation system, along with various ions which are essential to maintain the osmotic concentration of the body. So you understand how crucial is the transportation system, because it is playing a role in the, or it is linked with the nutrition process, it is linked with the cellular respiration very closely, it is also linked with the excretory system and also with other components like the hormones, right? Oh, basically it is going to be released from one part, right? One endocrine gland is going to secrete something, it is going to take into the target site, right? And you have the salts, immunoglobulins, or the antibodies and ions, which are all being transported by this particular transportation system in the body. So it is very crucial and it is very essential for it to work in a proper manner. Now, when we talk about human circulatory system, we have two system that is working. One is called blood vascular system, and another one is called lymphatic system. When we talk about blood vascular system, we talk about the composition consisting of the heart, blood and blood vessels. Heart is consisting of the auricles, and you know there are going to be two auricles and two ventricles, that is both the left and the right auricle, and similarly we have the left and the right ventricles. Now for the blood is consisting of the plasma, which is going to be the liquid portion of the blood, and the formed elements, which is basically the cells, we can say, right? We have different type of cells that we're going to see in a minute. Now the third component of blood vascular system is the blood vessels, which are going to be arteries, veins and capillaries. Now you learn that arteries are again of two types. One is called the systemic arteries, and the other one is called the pulmonary arteries. Similarly, we have the systemic veins and the pulmonary veins, right? So these are the types which are associated here in the blood vascular system, and what you have to understand is it is the heart, blood and the blood vessels together forming the transportation system. Now the heart is like the pump that is going to pump the blood. Blood is like the water. If you talk about regular water pump, you know, you have a pump that is pumping the water, and you have pipes which is going to carry the water to the target location. Here also the heart is the pump, the blood is like the water, and the blood vessels are like the pipes which are going to carry the blood to and fro from the target and the receiving sites. Now on the other hand, you have the lymphatic system, which is consisting of the lymph vessels, lymph capillaries and the lymph nodes, which anyway we'll talk about in a minute. Now another thing before we proceed, we need to keep in mind is when we talk about the blood vascular system, right, you have to understand this is going to be multi-directional, or we can say the bi-directional movement is there. But when we talk about the lymph and the lymphatic system, we have to understand it is going to be only unidirectional. Now what do you mean by that? When we talk about lymph, you have to understand that the lymph is going to go only from the tissue sites, right? So here it is only from tissue sites, or we can say from interstitial tissue sites to the heart, right? And it is not going to go back, right? It is not going to be from heart to tissue. It does not get pumped in that manner. But we know when we talk about blood, it is going to go from the heart to the tissue, and from the tissue sites it is going to come back to the heart. So it is kind of bi-directional. But when we talk about lymph, you have to understand it is only unidirectional movement, because it is the lymph which is present in the interstitial sites. Now these fluids are going to be collected and poured back into the heart. So it is only unidirectional. So now let's talk about the composition of the blood. So when we talk about the composition of the blood, you have to understand that it is not simply by looking at the blood we can say that blood is consisting of this. No. So to separate the composition, what is done is actually we use the centrifugation. So there is centrifuge. What is centrifuge is there is a high speed spin, right? So there is going to be spinning at a high RPM or rotation per minute. So that basically in the centrifuge machine, this blood gets spinned around at a high rate, and that is going to separate out the components of the blood with respect to their density. So whichever is denser, right? So now it is going to be dense, and on the top part it is going to be light. So liquid part of course is going to be lighter, so they will be on the top, and that is going to be consisting of the plasma. Now the plasma is consisting of around 55% of the whole blood, and then of course the least dense component. Now the denser ones, as I said, is going to settle down or towards the bottom, and that is going to be consisting of the formed elements. Now what are the formed elements? Now that's consisting of the leukocytes, platelets, and the erythrocytes. In simple, the WBC, platelets, and RBC. Now, in this again, if you see the erythrocyte, which is going to be the RBC, red blood corpuscles, now that is going to be around 45%. Majority is going to be RBC, and the remaining around 1% or so is going to be the leukocytes and the platelets. But what you have to understand is you see that the leukocytes play a very important role when we talk about the immune system, let's say, and platelets also play a very important role when we talk about blood coagulation. So this is the one under the electron microscope. You can see the blood cells, actually the leukocytes and the erythrocytes and the platelets here. Platelets are pretty small. These are the leukocytes, and erythrocytes are near biconcave. And you can see this is the a side view and the top view, and you can see this is actually biconcave, or we can say the donut shape erythrocytes. And the erythrocytes have a unique property, that is when they are actually developing, let's say in the early stage of development, now there is going to be nucleus, so they are nucleated. Now when they're matured, right, they're functioning, they're actually enucleated. That means they are devoid of nucleus. And what they're consisting of, these are like a sac present along with or only with the hemoglobin, right, which is a component that you'll learn later, just a sac with proteins. And remember, these are highly magnified image. This is around 1660 times magnified and artificially colored, but actually they are pretty small. Now, as I've already learned about that, the formed elements of the cells consisting of the leukocytes, erythrocytes, and platelets. The leukocytes again are of different types, and if you can see here, the leukocytes consist of two major components, that is going to be granulocytes and agranulocytes. Now, these names are based on certain granules in the cytoplasm of the leukocytes. Now, based on whether they are present or not, we are going to count that as granulocytes or agranulocytes. So, of course, the granulocytes does have these granules, and agranulocytes lack these granules. So, the granulocytes are of three types: neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. The agranulocytes consist of lymphocytes and the monocytes. Now, the lymphocytes here are of again two types. Now, that is called the B lymphocytes, also known as the B cell, and the T lymphocytes, also known as the T cells. Now, these B lymphocytes or the B cells play a very important role when we talk about the humoral immunity. Okay, and they produce what you call this antibody. Okay, now the T lymphocytes on the other hand is involved with CMI, or it is also known as cell mediated immunity, and they are also going to play a very important role. Both the B and T lymphocytes, which is going to involve in humoral immunity, which is going to be antibody mediated, and cell mediated immunity, which is going to be T cell mediated. They are going to play a very important role when we talk about the immunity in the body, in our body basically. Now, what are the functions of the blood? Now, the major functions here you can see are listed here. Let's say go one by one. One is going to supply the essential nutrients to the cell, that is amino acids, fatty acids, and glucose. Then there is the blood plasma, which is going to transfer the CO2 and nitrogenous waste in the dissolved form. Then you have the RBC, which is going to have the hemoglobin, or also written as HB, which is going to transport oxygen to each and every cell in the body. And then we have the WBC, as we have said, that is going to produce the antibody that is going to defend us from the infection and foreign bodies. And of course, there is something called the macrophage also, which is going to help in at a cellular level, that is going to help in the infection, the protection from the infection or the foreign bodies, and they're going to engulf the microbes and protect us. Then there are specialized cells such as the platelets, which is going to help in the blood coagulation when we are going to be bleeding because of a cut or an injury. So these are the functions of the blood that we all need to know. Now let's talk about a little bit about the leukocytes or the WBC and the immunity, partly, basically, which is related to what we are talking about here. So as you can see here, that there is some sort of cut or the injury, right? Cut or injury here, and because of the, let me change the color. Because of that, what is going to happen is the pathogens, which can be, let's say, these are can be the microbes, they get entry inside the body. Now because of this entry of the body, and this microbes being present within the body, these injured or infected cells, they're going to secrete chemical signals into the blood, and these chemical signals are going to basically activate the WBC. So here what is going to happen is the WBC, for example, they have the eosinophil, monocyte or neutrophil, and these respond to this chemicals released by this pathogens as well as from the damaged cells. Now in the next stage what happens is the leukocyte, right? Now they actually can leak out, or they can move out from the blood capillaries to the site. They basically move to the site of injury. Wherever there is an injury, they will move in there by squeezing out of the capillary walls between the cells. And finally in the stage 3, what is going to happen is, right, now these eosinophils, for example, they release chemicals, cytotoxic chemicals from the granules, and that is going to damage or destroy the foreign particles of the cells. Then you have this macrophage, a type of WBC. They can engulf the foreign particle and destroy, which a process called phagocytosis. Okay, they can actually engulf the entire thing. And the other cells also going to be helping in the entire process. Basically, this leukocytes, they're going to go to the injury site and they're going to destroy the foreign cells. So monocyte differentiates into macrophage, and the macrophage phagocytizes the pathogens, and the eosinophils and neutrophils, they are going to release chemicals that break apart the pathogen. So next time you get injured, remember this is a WBC that is actually going and fighting for you at that particular site, so that that injury, right, you are not going to get infected because of the presence of microbes. Now another thing is, already as I said, these are going to be the T cells and the B cells. So already we have said that the B cell interacts with something called antigen, right? Now what are antigen? These are the foreign particles, or they might be let's say the microbes, or we can say these are the toxins that can cause certain damage to the body. Now in response to this this antigen, the B cell produces, right? What do they produce? They produce the antibody. Now these are basically proteins, protein based. Now this antibody, they fight against the antigen, right? So this antibody, what do they do? They're going to basically they neutralize the antigen. Whichever is coming from outside, they're going to fight against it and they're going to break it down completely. Now they also have a memory of what's going on, and there is another one is called the T cell. The T cell directly associate with the foreign cell, let's say, and destroys them. Now they also help the B cell to produce the antibody. So that's the B and T cells which are going to help in the process of immunity in our body. So as you can see here, now this is a typical B cell, and the B cell have the B cell receptors, and the antigen is going to come and bind with this B cell receptors, and after that they're going to go certain modification or processing along with the help of the T cell, helper T cell, and with the help of the T cell and this antigen, they're going to produce the plasma cell, and the plasma cell produces the antibody. As you can see, these are the antibody. Now this antibody goes and fight with the antigen, and they're going to destroy them. So that's the entire thing with regards to the lymphocytes and the immunity, or the roles of the blood in the immune system in the body.